So, boys and girls, we're going to be responding to an Oxford speech given by a Muslim man about the realities of peace in Islam, or so he thinks. And he's going to make some good points, and I'm going to give my feedback. So, without further ado, make sure to subscribe, like the video, leave your comments. Follow me at Rafi the Realtor on Instagram for all of your real estate needs in Miami and the greater South Florida area. And you can support my channel by going to the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description or pinned comment. Let's get into it.
I think that if we looked at Hermann Ebbing, the German member of the Free Democratic Party, who argued when he was found with child photos that if he was prosecuted publicly, it would increase anti-Semitism, and his sentence was reduced. Tom Artyom Alexandrovich, again, someone caught in Las Vegas, left to Israel and very quietly allowed to escape bail. And of course, well, Jeffrey Epstein, Weinstein. If we said, wait a second, what do they all have in common? Should we start being suspicious of what they all have in common? You'd say that's anti-Semitic, and rightly so. So could we not extend, perhaps, the same latitude to criminals in every other community on planet Earth? Please.
None of those people used the Torah to justify sexual abuse, for example, or any of those things, because it's not in there. They did it because they're bad people,
You mean the
not
Mishnah,
because they're
perhaps?
Jews.
Some, actually, that there's been some quirky rabbis, not actually part of the mainstream, but have argued for permissibility to have sexual relations with a child over 3 years old. Would we say, oh, that means that all Jews are allowed to do that, and that's allowed for Jews? No, it's not, right? So anyone could.
You know, they, or they as in people now all over social media are talking about how Muslims are able to marry adolescents, and Muhammad married a 6-year-old, etc. Now, back in the day, hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, this was prevalent among many cultures. I wouldn't be shocked if Jews, I mean, I know for a certainty that Jews were getting married at 12, 13. These things were happening, okay? The difference is Jews and Christians are, if they're getting married below the legal age of maybe 17, 18, it's almost non-existent. You can find it maybe in extremely fringe groups of ultra-Orthodox sects. Even then, I'm not aware of this really happening. It's probably extremely uncommon. But on the other hand, in Islamic countries, this is still very prevalent. In countries like Yemen, in countries like Afghanistan, and many other Muslim countries, have child marriage is still legalized. And so this imam or this sheikh or whoever he is trying to act as if, oh, well, this isn't a big deal because all religious groups partake. No, they don't. They don't partake in these things. Pedophilia, which is a disgusting thing, and quite frankly, I would support the death penalty for such a thing. I question God as to why he has brought such a sick addiction or such a sick attraction to you. I don't understand it, and that's something I maybe will never understand as to why these sorts of people exist. Like, why do they exist so we should jail them, right? Clearly, some people have this illness. I don't know. I don't know. But all I know is they can't be allowed to obviously partake in such acts. These exist among all religious groups. The difference is that in many Islamic countries, this happens on a regular basis, and nothing happens at all. And so it's wrong on every metric, and it's wrong no matter who does it, and anyone who does it should be punished for it. But in Jewish and Christian communities, it is unacceptable. I would say in the majority of Muslim communities in free societies like the West, it's also unacceptable. But in many of their countries, even though it may be frowned upon, it happens with little to no punishment. That's a very big distinction. A good portion of the Islamic world is still stuck in the 7th century. And this is something that this guy is not looking to acknowledge.
This, as the saying goes by Shakespeare, the devil can quote scripture. Okay, well, I'm going to go into patience, sir.
Gentlemen, can I remind you of the forms of the House, please?
I think I've made him a little irate. It's okay. Please, just no. I'm trying to talk about the principle.
Sir, can I ask you to please refrain from interrupting the speaker? We have discussed the forms of the House. If you wish to make a point of information, please rise and do so. Otherwise, please allow the speaker to continue. Thank you.
So, let's discuss as many things as possible, and I'm going to speed up a little bit. So people talk about what ISIS did to Yazidis. Where were the Yazidis, by the way? Or in the Middle East? For how long? 1,400 years. And who were their neighbors for 1,400 years? Muslims. So did Muslims only after 1,400 years say, wait a second, those look a bit funny. Yazidis, let's persecute them and kill them. That's how ridiculous the argument is. You know, I find it a shame that people only realized, despite all the rhetoric that Iran wants to kill all Jews, that the only time we realized that Jews were actually in Iran was when Israel blew up a synagogue in Tehran. Tehran has 30 synagogues, by the way. 6,000 Jews live in Tehran. Other issues. Let's see if I can go even quicker.
Okay, so first of two, I want to cover the Yazidi discussion and the Iranian point he made. Were Muslims killing Yazidis for a long period of time? Yes, the Yazidis have faced persecution by various Muslim rulers, armies, and extremist groups for many centuries. Here's a brief timeline. Medieval period onward, Yazidis, whose religion is distinct from Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, were often viewed by some Muslim rulers as heretics or devil worshippers because of misunderstandings about their reverence for the angel Tausi Melek. This led to repeated campaigns of forced conversion, massacres, and displacement. Ottoman era. Several Ottoman governors, and this was 16th to 19th centuries, and Kurdish Muslim rulers launched military campaigns against Yazidi communities. Some were killed, others were forced to convert to Islam, and villages were destroyed. 19th century. This was particularly devastating. Leaders such as Bedir Khan Beg and other regional rulers carried out attacks that resulted in thousands of Yazidis being killed or displaced. 20th century. Although the scale varied, Yazidis continued to face discrimination and periodic violence in Iraq and surrounding nations. 2014, the most infamous modern attack occurred when the extremist group Islamic State attacked the Sinjar region of Iraq. ISIS murdered thousands of Yazidi men, enslaved thousands of women and girls, forcibly recruited boys, and attempted to eradicate the Yazidi community. It's also worth noting that throughout history, some Muslim individuals and communities protected Yazidis while others participated in or opposed persecution. Perpetrators vary depending on the time period and political context. So while Yazidis have undeniably suffered repeated persecution at the hands of certain Muslim rulers and extremist groups over centuries, it would not be accurate to attribute those actions to Muslims as a whole. Okay, politically correct, ChatGPT. The reality is, Muslims have been kind to their minorities throughout history, and they have been brutal to their minorities throughout history, and so have Christians. I've said this on my channel before. Christians over the course of history have killed and persecuted Jews more than Muslims have. But in recent history, the Muslims are much less tolerant than the Christians are. This is just reality. The Jews have suffered by the hands of both forced conversions, slavery, all kinds of mistreatment, torture, etc. So depends on when you look at history. But if you want to look at the laundry list of persecution against Jews by the hands of Muslims, all you have to do is Google it. There is a humongous list. In terms of Iran being nice to their Jews, it is a very different discussion when it comes to Israel. The Jews in Iran are a tiny minority of a few thousand, and they don't threaten the Iranian public because they don't have rulership over the country. The difference with Israel is that the Jews have rule over one of the holiest pieces of land according to all three religions. The Jews consider it the holiest. Christians would maybe say the Vatican, but many would say that Jerusalem is. That is the challenge. That is the issue. When Jews are dhimmis, they don't threaten the fabric of Islamic rule, Islamic society. But if the Jews were trying to take over Iran, that would change everything. So it has to do with Jewish rule, Jewish sovereignty. It's not about the Muslims plan to convert all the Jews eventually, but they sure as hell are not going to accept Jewish rule in what they consider to be Muslim land. That's what people, I don't know why people that understand this, or maybe people don't understand this, but Muslims like to make this distinction. They like say, "Oh well, the Iranians are safe in Iran." First of all, they deal with issues. They definitely deal with it. They deal with they accuse them of spying for Israel. Jews have been tortured and arrested for things like that. So yeah, I mean they live in the country fairly peacefully, but they're always at risk. At the end of the day, as long as they kind of shut their mouths and stay quiet, I mean, is that a life? I guess. Do some Iranian Jews like it there? I don't know why they would want to stay there. I guess they have their businesses or people would just get comfortable. But the vast majority of Iranian Jews have left and have no interest in going back. So I just think it's a silly argument.
The, the Quran says very clearly there's no compulsion in religion. It has not, there's actually 4 mentions of the word compulsion in the Quran, and every single one, it's always not to compel. Every single one. There's not a verse that's not mentioned. One second. There's not a verse that's not mentioned often, which is, it said, if God so willed, he would have created the whole world following one religion. So if that's the case, who are you to compel when basically religion should be only for God, i.e. God decides who is God?
I love when they use this, but they choose to ignore purposely the idea of abrogation, where all of the later verses in the Quran cancel out the peaceful ones. They cancel out the earlier ones. When Muhammad's army was strong enough, he went to war, he waged war against the non-Muslims. According to Sharia law, a non-Muslim living in a Muslim country either has to pay jizya, convert to Islam, or they wage war against him. This is a fact. So it's very cute that you say there's no compulsion in religion, but there absolutely is. How do you think all of the Islamic countries became Muslim? Do you think they just asked them nicely? They waged war on them. They conquered them and forced them to convert. I don't know why the Muslims are still using these talking points. Like I guess because they're still fooling a lot of people. But if all Muslims believed that, we'd be fine. But too many of them don't follow that peaceful component. That's what people have an issue with. Like if all Muslims tomorrow all took on the notion that there's no compulsion in religion, we wouldn't have this issue. So if we want to all get along, that's a big component. I don't sit here, I post a lot about Islam and things like that. I think all 3 religions have problematic scriptures. The difference is Jews and Christians have said, you know what? We believe in our religion strongly. We believe in God. We care about our religions. We care about our faiths. We don't want to take on at face value calls for violence. We want to absolve those things, and we want to get along peacefully with our neighbors of different beliefs. Okay? And you have many Muslims that think the same way. But unfortunately, you have millions and millions of Muslims who do not think peacefully, and they follow the violent components of Islam at face value. They're simply observing Islam at its core. That's what they're doing. They're not extremists. They're actually doing it correctly. This is not just some conspiracy theory. This is just fact.
Guided and who is not. That's not a verse of the Quran, right? We're not allowed to compel anyone to become Muslim. But also, sure.
Why can't you buy a plane to Riyadh?
Well, you can if you probably say, I'm not sure about Riyadh, but in Pakistan, which is an Islamic republic, you can. Just say you're Christian and you get beer, right? That's the point, is that let's pick the worst country we can find out of 50 countries and judge all Muslims by it, when the vast majority clearly go against your argument. Oh yes, it was said, doesn't Islam say you must kill gays, people who are homosexual? No, it doesn't. Not in a single verse, not in a single hadith. Brother, please tell me, how many gays did the Prophet Muhammad kill then? Why are you silent now? Right? How many gays did he kill?
Does the Quran actually not preach death for people who engage in homosexual sexual acts?
The Quran doesn't say.
If Muhammad was killing gays, he would probably have to kill himself because it's noted in hadith that he partook in gay acts in a gay orgy specific. I'm not making this up. I mean, that's what it says. So it would be a little hypocritical of him. I mean, that's what some homophobes do. They are super anti-gay, but they're gay themselves. So maybe he didn't want to throw he didn't want to throw stones in a glass house, so to speak. You know, it's just an interesting point.
The Quran actually doesn't talk about that. It talks about people who have sex outside of marriage. But the point is, let me correct you. So, like, look, I know you're getting anxious, but like, please let me finish my point, sir. You know, freedom of speech. So, let me.
You said you were freedom of speech.
Sorry?
You keep saying.
Yeah, but you have to let me speak first, and then I can give way to you. I haven't even started speaking, sir. Okay. All right. I think you have to judge religion based on the teachings, on the text, because that's where the religion comes from. If we judged religion or any moral ideology or belief system by its adherents, we would basically condemn all morality and humanity at all, because there's always criminals, always someone that are self-centered.
That's true. I agree with what he's saying. That's a good point. Fair.
Despite their high-minded claims. Also, the laws that do exist on some of the books in the Muslim world, unfortunately, were taken from somewhere. The idea of the homosexual was invented in the 19th century, as in the idea that you should classify people by sexuality, homosexuality, heterosexuality, and so on. Krafft von Ebing was the person. And then the Victorians developed an idea that you should be intolerant about these people. It was a mental disease. And then they imported it or exported it into the Muslim world, when we never had the concept of the heterosexual, bisexual, homosexual. Everyone was just people. Right? So, and then we're blamed for basically adopting an older version of the West. We have to update to West 2.0, and we're being blamed for still on West 1.0. I would argue we should be in West 0.0, but it's because in Islam, we didn't have such persecutions that the West encountered. Let me finish that, and then I'll take it. I'll take it in a second.
Point of information.
All right, I'll take it in a second.
So
I didn't accept it.
Sorry, gentlemen, he said he'll take one in a moment. Please allow him to continue. Thank you.
So basically, if the Muslim world doesn't accept the forcefully imposed ideas and concepts from the West, we're somehow being intolerant of the West. That's kind of how you've been sounding throughout this entire discussion today, actually. I think the second thing is Sharia can't be imposed on non-Muslims. The Quran says, regards those Jews and Christians, Jews coming to the Prophet Muhammad to seek his judgment, and then they didn't accept it. So what does the Quran say? If they don't accept it, then turn away from them. Say, you go judge by your own book. It says judge. The people of the book should judge by their own book. It's actually in the Quran. Okay, I'll take it one from you.
So, viewpoints is more actually just full bullshit. So, what?
Mr. Jones Lyons, please sit down. Thank you. Mr. Jones Lyons, please sit down. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but you see, that's the clever thing is you could say, oh, Sharia, you can force Sharia on non-Muslims, but you can force Islam on non-Muslims. And when you force Islam on non-Muslims and they're Muslim, then you can then force Sharia on them. That's the point. It's like, okay, well, if we convert them to Islam by force, then they now have to follow Sharia. Also, if a non-Muslim lives in a Sharia-run country, they still have to abide by certain laws, even if they're not Muslim. For example, if you're a Jew living in a Muslim country, you're still going to have to cover your hair in certain instances. If you're in Afghanistan, they're still going to expect you to cover your hair. If you're in Yemen as a woman, you're still going to have to cover your hair. Even if the state law, even if it's not enforced at the state level, the locals are absolutely going to force you to do it to some extent. They're either going to shun you or they may attack you. It's kind of understood that in a good portion of these Muslim countries, it's probably better for you as a woman to be covered up. But you could say, oh, well, it's not fair. But that's how it is. The same way where a specific country may not have the death penalty for gay people, but you better not be gay in public. Yeah, let's see how it works out if two men are kissing in any of these Muslim countries, even supposedly the more modern ones. That ain't gonna fly so well.
Okay, if I may continue. Look, the thing is, one of the issues that as Muslims face is that we are constantly on trial for our own existence. Like the stakes today is not an academic stake. The stakes are something much greater because these people.
First of all, the Jews are far more on the stake than Muslims ever were. Let's be honest about that. And we won what, like almost a third of the Nobel Prizes when Muslims won three. We've contributed far more to the world than Muslims have, and we are constantly berated, attacked for everything. We're blamed for everything. So don't give me your fucking sob story about how Muslims are blamed for everything. You, you guys get away with a lot, a lot, okay? And people are often too afraid to criticize you for things versus Jews. Most people outside of Israel, where Israel has an army, people are not afraid of Jews. People are petrified of Muslims, okay? And for good reason, because the Muslims, and I guess you could credit them to some extent, they're willing to fight, okay? You post, you make some, ugly picture of some Jewish rabbi. Jews are not going to do shit to you. You put a picture of Muhammad in some cartoon, you risk dying, okay? Even in a free society. And just the mere fact that Muslims get to complain about their mistreatment in a free society, they don't get to do that in their own countries. When women in a Muslim woman in a hijab is on some podium in Australia complaining about Islamophobia, the fact that she even has a voice to discuss a dissenting opinion is just everything. You're watching the hypocrisy right there. It's like, lady, you're complaining about the fact that you actually have the freedom to complain. You you don't even have those freedoms where you came from. And that's fine. I'm glad you have the freedom now. But show a little bit of appreciation because you wouldn't even have a voice where you came from. So if you have to deal with a little bit of bullshit, like, and that's the price you pay, like, I'm not saying you shouldn't try to have it better, but show a little bit of gratitude. It's You're not looking to run back to the shithole country you came from.
People have proposed certain policies, such as religious tests and ethnic cleansing. Sorry, remigration. Sorry, and this is the threat that is basically upon a religious minority in the West. We're constantly in judgment.
A point of order has been raised, Mr. Fox.
Who is advocating for ethnic cleansing?
Here.
At any point this evening. If the whole point of having a decent debate is in good faith.
This is a point of order or a point of information?
Mr. Fox, I hear your point of order. I hear your point of order. Mr. Andalusi, could I ask you to clarify who has advocated for ethnic cleansing?
Britain First. Members I've encountered of the Restore
people
Party.
you're mentioning are not at this
some
debate.
Some of the friends of these individuals which I will bring.
Mr. Andalusi,
yeah.
I must ask you to withdraw the remark as it relates to the opposition bench, simply because the people that you're citing are not at this debate. Are you able to say that any of the gentlemen opposite have made that comment?
Well, that's fine. I retract. I'll say members of the far right. Members of the far right, for example, there was a case where a black person attended the United Kingdom march. There was Britain First guy there. The guy was there to support it, and Britain First said it's good. We'll get rid of the bad migrants first, and we'll save the good ones for last. Basically, if I remember. Anyway, well, there's a video on it online. You can see it's been doing the rounds. Okay. So, if Sharia can't be imposed on non-Muslims, what about the command? Is there a command, or the alleged command, to kill all non-Muslims wherever you find them, or anything like this? And this is wrong. And I will quote to you a classical medieval Islamic scholar, Ibn Taymiyyah. I quote Ibn Taymiyyah because Ibn Taymiyyah was actually been praised by ISIS, been praised by Al-Qaeda. He's looked up to for them, but let's see what he says. He's a medieval scholar, so he's not pandering to any liberal current day. So he says, the foundation is that the blood of Bani Adam, which is the tribe of Adam, this is all human beings, is sanctified and inviolable, and no one is killed except by a right. Killing due to disbelief in Islam is not something which the legislations have agreed upon at any one time of Sharia, such as killing the one who sits out of combat. For this is something that the legislators have and the intellect do not differ over. The blood of a non-Muslim during the time since early Islam was sanctified and inviolable, just like the original sanctity of the person from Bani Adam. So, as Allah prevented Muslims from killing such anyone who's a non-Muslim, considering a non-Muslim. This is a medieval classical scholar. It's pretty straightforward. But then the question arises, why then did Al-Qaeda exist? What did the killers of Lee Rigby say they were doing it for, right? So?
A point of order has been raised. I'll hear the gentleman.
Just as a question for clarification, has the remark on remigration has been withdrawn, yes? I actually have a quote here from Tommy Robinson. I would have remigration. It's time for many Muslims to leave this country if they're not going to integrate or assimilate. It's time to go home.
Yeah.
I hear the honourable gentleman. I hear the honourable gentleman's point. Mr. Andalusi, I hear the honourable gentleman's point of order. However, we are concerned with the comments in this chamber.
Okay.
I believe you're reading a quote from outside this chamber.
Okay.
Is that the case?
Yes, but I would leave.
I'm going to ask everybody to take their seats. I've ruled on the point of order. I will remind the gentleman that a point of order is not for simply reading quotes from outside the chamber. It must be to raise a matter concerned with the debate that is going on. Thank you. Mr. Andalusi.
I haven't even started speaking yet, sir. No, I haven't accepted it because my time is limited now, right? And I'll leave it to the imagination of everyone who here will be on his list of Muslims he will remigrate. So, what about free speech?
Excuse me, you can't do this.
I can. It's called my time to speak, sir.
Can I ask Mr. Andalusi to make some progress, Mr. Fox? I understand the point you're raising. Mr. Andalusi, can I ask you to continue? And can I ask you, Mr. Fox, thank you. Mr. Andalusi, can I ask you not to repeat that remark? We have already dealt with this point.
No, I need more than that. Right, okay. What about free speech? We've heard a lot about free speech. Well, I'll just give you an example of medieval Islamic free speech. Perhaps that would give you the best example, because you might say maybe Muslims here in this day and age in many countries don't fully understand what Islam requires them to do, quote unquote, vis-a-vis people who attack the Prophet Muhammad or criticize him. Well, firstly, the example of the Prophet Muhammad was he had a neighbor who was a woman who hated him, hated his message, and every day he'd come out, when he'd come back, she'd throw rubbish on his head, and he didn't do anything to her. Except there was one day when he came back and the woman didn't throw rubbish in his head. And what did he do? He went to her door, knocked on it, she opened it, and she was shocked to see him there. And he said, "Are you okay? I noticed that you didn't throw rubbish on my head, so I was concerned about you." And she said, "No one in all of the town has come to see me because I'm ill, except you." And then she embraced Islam. She was amazed at the person's morals. This is the example that Muslims follow. And I'll give you an example from Islamic history, please. Let me just at least quote an example. So you've probably maybe you've heard of someone, a saint called Saint John of Damascus. Why is he called Saint John of Damascus? Well, firstly, let me talk about his book. So he published a book attacking Islam, quite vociferously calling the Prophet a false prophet who wrote ridiculous compositions, randomly accused him of committing adultery, and wrote how that Muslims are like beasts who are destined to hell. Where did he publish this book? He published this book under the Umayyad Caliphate, Syria, during Islamic times. And then he had a student, Theodorus Abukaris, who wrote 15 more books criticizing, 15 more books attacking Islam. And he was invited to the court of Caliph Marwan to have a debate with Muslim scholars in front of the Caliph, and at the end, by his own account, he was given gifts and a mantle for his good debating skills, even though he had not embraced Islam and he had kept on attacking. And what happened to him? The Muslim scholar Isa bin Sabih al-Murda published a book refuting him. And that was it. This is Islamic free speech. And I'll leave it with one final point, because my time has been heavily limited, unfortunately. Does everyone know the quote, "Live and let live"? You've heard of it? Does anyone know a famous person or an infamous person that said it? You don't know? Or you're not going to like what I say next. I'm going to give you someone that you won't be able to get out of your head. There was a guy that said it relatively recently. His name is Osama bin Laden. He said it, and you can check in the book by Dr. Bruce Lawrence, the composition of the statements by Osama bin Laden, when he said, and let me explain the context. All right, it's easy to scoff, but it's harder to actually investigate the nuances of reality. The issue is, yes. Osama bin Laden was asked in an Al Jazeera interview, why are you fighting the West? And also you have declared that non-combatants can be attacked. So he said that because the West kills our women and children, and I want to protect our women and children by making the West pay a price to feel our pain in the same way to stop them from bombing us. This is not an Islamic logic, by the way. And then the person asked him, but does not the Prophet Muhammad forbid the targeting of non-combatants? And you know what Osama bin Laden said? You're right, it is forbidden in the Quran and Sunnah. But then he says, but this prohibition, he believes, let me finish here, this prohibition, he believes, is not absolute. Because he says in the modern world, which is not an Islamic text or someone, he says, we should reciprocate how the enemy fights us. And then he claims that Islamic scholars have permitted this. I will finish it right now.
I must ask you to conclude.
Yes, okay.
Mr. Sacredotti.
One last quote.
Gentlemen, please. Thank you. Mr. Sacredotti, you raised a point of order. What is your point of order?
We'd all like him to carry on. It's really funny. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Sacredotti. That's not a point of order. Mr. Stiles, yes. What is your point of order?
Thank you. Let me...
Can the gentleman opposite confirm whether he condemns...
That is not a point of order, Mr. Stiles.
Mr. Osama bin Laden...
Mr. Stiles, sit down. That is not a point of order. Mr. Andalusi, Mr. Andalusi, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to conclude your remarks. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, I do condemn Osama bin Laden and his methods, because, as the classical medieval Islamic scholar Ibn Qurtubi says, it is not permissible for us to retaliate in the same manner, even if the enemy kill our women and children and cause sorrow to befall us. It is not permissible for us to act likewise with the intention of making them feel grief and sorrow. Medieval Islamic scholars understood the rules of war. Osama bin Laden wants to change it to become part of the modern world, to imitate the West. And he cites Winston Churchill's bombing of Germany. He said, they can bomb civilians, why can't we? In Islam, this is a rejected argument. We don't copy monstrous actions. We don't become the monsters who fight us. But I will give one last sentence and I will conclude.
I'm sorry.
So,
there's a different kind of nature when you're going in, for example, what Hamas did, and they rampaged through Israeli towns, killing whoever they could, raping women, killing children. They went in there with the sole goal of killing whoever they can. Israel does not wage war that way. Western countries wanted to finish their wars, defeat their enemies. They wanted to be finished and not allow for Nazism to invade and conquer their lands. It's a totally different situation. If Japan surrendered prior to the atomic bomb, they wouldn't have dropped them. You want to argue whether it was necessary or not, it happened. Hopefully a nuclear bomb is never dropped on people ever again. I hope not. With that said, leave your comments, like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments. You can follow me at Rafi the Realtor on Instagram for all of your real estate needs in South Florida. And you can support the channel by going to the Buy Me a Coffee link, which can be found in the pinned comment or description. Any donation would be greatly appreciated. Until next time, peace.